Unitarian Universalist Association is preparing for the General Assembly in 2025, which will be in June. This year, the annual banner parade will include a multi-platform congregational recognition, and banners and photos will be displayed throughout the convention center in Baltimore, creating a tapestry of community. Please join us on the chancel after service if you'd like to be included in this picture. Also, don't forget, it's about a month away, is our church auction, service auction. Much faster than we thought. It's coming. All proceeds from the auction go to support our expenses as a church. Look for the yellow box in the foyer to find sign-up sheets for donations and volunteering. If you have questions or need suggestions for a donation, contact our fundraising team, which is made up of Marcy Lind, Emily Smith, and Meg there, and Jennifer Goodman.
Hijack your message, right?
You sure can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of hijacking it. Okay, so this is the sign up sheet that Mr. Mike was talking about. So down here is also the email to fundraiser@uucheyenne.org, and then Marcy's phone number, you can text or call her, okay? So that's the sign up sheet. It's like when you go down to go to Jed's office or to the restrooms, it's right there. If it's a snake, it will bite you. So okay, so I'm here to also talk about the food. Surprise. Okay, so this is not the board, that the charcuterie boards. They're about, if you can imagine, to take off this top part, they're about this big. And what we're gonna do is we're going to do some laser engraving in there, probably with the chalice flame on there, and then just I'm gonna ask maybe a couple people if they would like to donate some art to it. Feel free. My nephew Ivan is gonna do some art and, and stuff like that. You can also see me for that. But that's about how big the board is. Now, these are the charcuterie boards that are gonna also be auctioned off for one refill. Okay, so I have that sheet here. Emily Smith is gonna do the gluten-free one. There's also meat and cheese, fruit and veggie, and a dessert. Remember, no peanuts in anything. We don't want anybody to die. We also have another sign-up sheet, but this is little, but we also have another sign-up sheet if you would like to just bring orders. And if you have any questions, let me know. I will be here probably let's be honest, I'll probably be here at noon. So setting everything up. So just, yell if you have any questions about the foods or anything like that, just let me know. You know where to find me. Thank you, Mr. Mike.
Sure. Thank you. And Jen, you had an announcement of some information from me here, but I don't see it. Oh, there you are. I don't see your note. Go ahead and come and speak.
Well, hi, I apologize. I thought that I left the right piece of paper up here. I must not have. But we are going to be having an informational meeting today after coffee hour about Sanctuary. Some of you may have read about it in our newsletter. We've posted a little bit about it on Realm as well. If you haven't heard about it, now's the time. We're going to do like some questions, some answers, just get some general information about what our plans are for Sanctuary in 2025. And we'll make an announcement of like, hey, this is going to start before we just go into it. So.
And just because Sanctuary, if people are not familiar with the word, sometimes folks go, oh, about like this room? Sanctuary is part of a larger landscape of immigration justice, and we're looking at what our hopes and wishes are for supporting our immigrant communities here in Wyoming. So that's a shorthand for that larger conversation, which we'd love for you to be a part of. Thank you. And now, I believe as we gather in person and on Zoom each week, it is time to talk about our generosity, the ways we give from our resources to sustain the work of this church and share our abundance with community organizations, broadening the reach of our values. You can find our text to give number and a QR code in your order of service or use your Realm app for electronic giving. And your Share the Plate donations may also be dropped in the baskets in a few moments when they pass. But our Share the Plate partner, as always for February, is Wyoming Equality, one of our favorite organizations, which Sarah Burlingame is going to come tell us some things about, whichever one you like.
Good morning. Good morning. I have a great Share the Plate message with you, but I just have to say that I haven't seen Adam and Aiden in a while, and they're so gosh darn tall, I can't get over it. So if you see me going, what? It's because I'm so happy to see them and want to know what their mom's been feeding them. Good morning. I'm Sarah Burlingame. I'm the Executive Director of Wyoming Equality, and we're really proud and grateful to be the Share the Plate partner this February. I'm going to start off with a really bad news so that we can get to the good news. And it's information that we haven't shared anyplace else because it's touchy, and we think that the people who are working to defund Wyoming Equality would love it if we said how successful they have been in public places. So we don't say it very publicly. But the Freedom Caucus, which is a group of far-right folks that has made Wyoming the very first state that they have gotten the majority control of in the legislature, successfully got the Department of Health to cut funding that we received from the CDC. So federal money that was earmarked specifically for rural LGBTQ healthcare advocacy and resources. And that was $150,000. So we have $150,000 to raise in the next 4 months before we have to start thinking about either laying off or cutting the insurance of our staff. So that's the very bad news. The very good news is how generous the people in Wyoming have been and how the Wyoming Equality staff has responded to this. We think we have excellent programming. We think we have excellent advocacy efforts to get the word out and to increase our large, our small monthly, and our grant opportunities. So all is absolutely not lost, but for just like a little tidbit of what it's been like doing LGBTQ advocacy in Wyoming right now, ordinarily, there are 2 or 3 bills that seek to harm our community. And so we focus everything we have on those 2 or 3 bills. This year, there were 25. And so the ability to have that same focus, and we flatter ourselves that they throw everything they have at harming the LGBTQ community because they see how effective our advocacy is. They see how deeply rooted in our communities, how broad our coalitions are, and that's why they go after us. It might also just be because they're mean. In terms of giving, we're just asking folks, if you have not become a monthly donor to Wyoming Equality, please go to wyomingequality.org. Hit the donate button and make it a monthly donation. Another great way that you can give, if you're a member of this church in particular, is that you can become either a monthly donor or a one-time donor to the Lauren Danley Scholarship Fund, which will fund Wyoming students, both LGBTQ and an ally, whether they stay in state or because of the shocking cuts to diversity, equity, inclusion, and programs that support our students, whether they go out of state. So the 2 ways you can give I mean, you can give a multitude of ways, but we'd really appreciate if you became a monthly donor. And if you would like to donate to the Lauren Danley Scholarship Fund, it would be great to see that grow as well, because we know that the need is only going to become greater. But we also know that we've faced much darker times than this. And I guess the piece of hope that I want to leave you with is we were in Casper, Wyoming for a sort of 5 families meeting of all these different LGBTQ groups who had come together about 10 years ago to say, what does LGBTQ advocacy look like in Wyoming? How do we make sure we're not repeating each other's work and just amplifying and being strategic? And there was a group of older women, and they had created the Casper Closet Library. Because there was a time then the internet wasn't around, and there was a time when, not that long ago, that Wyoming Equality sent out our newsletter, The United Voice, in brown paper wrapping. We were so closeted and we were so underground. And these women said, hey, we're closing down the closet library. We don't need it anymore. We're all out and loud now. We're in the public. We've got the internet. Could we donate to you and have sort of an archive at Wyoming Equality? We said we would love to have that. And so what we got to see were all of these old newsletters and all of these old like almost like magazines that the LGBTQ community of Wyoming had created in the darkest days. You know, when Sissy Goodwin couldn't walk down the street without being arrested, you know, for dressing in his inimitable ruffled petty skirts, when people were being jailed and harassed and kicked out of their homes. Not that that has all been lifted, but really dark days. And you got to see the LGBTQ community and this church and churches like it all over Wyoming, having potlucks, sending money, supporting each other, going down to Denver for the Pride Parade when there was nothing like Pride Cheyenne or anything out loud happening. And it's a wonderful reminder that this community does the work that it has always done. We always stand with the most marginalized. So I hope that you'll remember that. I hope that you'll become monthly donors or make a one-time donation, whatever it is, we'll make good use of it. Thank you.
And so it is with gratitude for the generosity of this community that we receive our morning offering. Rebecca Savage writes, "We gather today with sacred intention to declare that justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that this is possible. Not here, not quite yet, but the seeds have been planted time and again, and we remember all those who went before us, who made beloved community a dream that could be realized. Justice is our prayer. May this time of worship together continue to water the budding trees of our diverse interdependence. May our time of worship give air and nourishment to the parts of our collective spirits that need to grow and thrive, that embrace equity as a known way of being. Justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that this is possible. May it be so, and so let us worship together. For our opening hymn, I invite you to take your gray hymnals out, rising in body or in spirit as we join in singing hymn number 298. This is "Wake Now My Senses."
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. The other deep power. Shows us reason, reach out to one. Join with each program, it's for the true. The and wisdom of time, suffer and praise the soul. In our conviction, give to sense of suffering, save the wide sky. Sing as long as stranger and friend. To justice, thy word, joy, all take granted. Places of you. Wake now salvation, stream clean. Transformed by our
It is now, when we are called as witnesses of the world, to mend it, to change its course, to restore it. It is now, when we are called to act on our values, not to hide, not to fear, but to be bold and loud. It is now that we are called to continue our fight for justice, to organize, to speak up. It is now. Let us gather. Let us give each other courage as we light our chalice in love. And now, if the young or the young at heart wish to join us on the chancel at this time, we invite you to share the leadership of speaking our covenant in unison before our time for all ages.
Always appreciative of the young at heart as well. And hello, good to see you, Maddie. All right, the words to our covenant may be found on the inside cover of your order of worship. And we begin, love is the spirit of this church, and service its cause. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth, and to help others. All right. Today's message for all ages comes from a book called The Youngest Marcher. It's by Cynthia Levinson. So, how old do you think you have to be to become an activist?
About 17?
Maybe 17? I saw some hand gestures that looked like you could be a little younger than that. Old enough to speak and think? 3? Like 8? Old enough for thinking? 10?
7?
Maybe 7. So, back in the days of the civil rights movement, around the 1950s and 60s, there was a lot going on. A lot of people had finally started to figure out, a lot of people already knew this, but people in power, white people, had started to finally figure out that keeping the United States, keeping parts of our world segregated, where only people who had white skin or only people who had brown skin could go certain places, was really unfair. It wasn't gonna work anymore. Up until that time, in a lot of our southern states in particular, there were places where you couldn't even use certain water fountains. There was a whites-only water fountain with a big sign over the top, and a blacks-only or colored people-only water fountain with a big sign over the top. And often, the one that was for people who weren't white didn't work. And things like restaurants were separated, things like toilets had to be separated. It was not convenient, but it sure made some people feel more special. However, in the 1950s, a young man in his 30s named Martin Luther King.
Junior?
Yes. You've already heard a part of this story. So Martin Luther King Jr. started preaching in the South. He was talking to Black people, to white people, to people of all races and nationalities. And he said very inspiring things about what might happen if we had unity, if we had equality, if we let people be judged not by the color of their skin, he said, but by the content of their character. how they were on the inside. And so, in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1963, Audrey Faye Hendricks, who was 9 years old, happened to be in a church where Martin Luther King Jr. was speaking. And she thought, well, if it's not about what I look like on the outside, then I don't see any reason I couldn't be an activist. And so when all of the adults got up from the church and got ready to march, so did she. And she was part of the civil rights protest in Birmingham, Alabama that day. And so she spoke up. She stood up. She got on the picket line and carried a sign along with everybody else. She decided to be part of picketing white stores and marching. And then she even said, I'll go to jail if people need to go to jail. That was a pretty big and scary thing to do. But one of the things that happened, do you think anybody feels really good about arresting a small child? Or seeing a small child arrested on TV? No. If you can kind of tell if you're arresting a 9-year-old, you might be the one who's in the wrong in this situation. So this is a bigger question, I think, about our legal procedures. But in general, we try not to arrest children or send them to jail. We try to figure out other ways of correcting behavior or learning.
Like timeout.
Yeah, I mean, so jail can sometimes kind of be timeout for adults. And if you see that on the news, that was a moment where a lot of people, a lot of white people who considered themselves liberal or moderate, but thought some of this civil rights stuff maybe was just too much change too fast. Or, they're awfully pushy. Maybe we could use a little course correction. Are these things that you have maybe heard in other situations with other groups of people? Some of our adults especially might have. But some of those people kind of woke up. They went, wait a minute, that's really not okay. And so it was that Audrey Faye Hendricks was one of the people at 9 years old who changed the course of American history, who made sure that the civil rights era made more space for Black Americans, for people of all shades of skin tone, to live full and free lives with access to education and restaurants and toilets and water fountains and swimming pools and all sorts of things that previously were divided. And so I would like for all of us, people of every age, to continue wondering and thinking, how old do you need to be an activist? And what might I be old enough, big enough, ready to do? Because the answer is different for all of us, what we're ready for. But you'll never know unless you wonder and think. So thank you all so much for being part of the story. We're going to head to our seats because it is time for the pastoral prayer. So if you'll join me in just taking a breath and settling your spirit into prayer or meditation in mindfulness, we speak to community, spirit of life and of love. Each week we gather to support one another as comfort in hard times and to celebrate in our joyful and happy moments, to dwell together in that larger wonder and mystery of this magnificent, ever-changing life. Today, our prayers reach out to our own small community where Julianne is still struggling with pneumonia. We offer prayers for breath, for healing, for well-being. We offer our gratitude as Elaine continues to recover, our gratitude for all those assisting with rides and with cat care and all the little things that make life more possible when people are in a state of recovery. We offer gratitude that Susan is back with us after a few months of absence from our church community and from our kitchen. We offer such gladness. Meg Varhalmi notes, my oldest kid, which I think is Aaron, has been accepted to LCCC in the fall, and also as part of a larger moment of happiness is one of our February birthday crew. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to come up and play us a little happy birthday, because Zane and Chris Allen both have birthdays coming up in the next week. And we'd love to sing to all three. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aaron and Chris and Zane. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Thank you. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your successes, your talent, and that you're another year older and wiser. And let our prayers as well reach out, for in our wider world, there are so many things. The things that are amplified in the news this week are mostly those of fear, of sadness, the loss of many young figure skaters and many people in an airplane crash earlier this week. The fear of our immigrant communities as deportations have been ramping up as people worry about being taken from work or from school while trying to pick up their children. For our federal workers wondering, waiting, worrying about the many changes to various departments, about what so many changes and rollovers will mean for our trans kin and their families, wondering about things from paperwork to education and physical safety. And let us remember that within, around, and beyond these stories, there is so much more going on. There are individual workers doing their best to expedite passports before they can be halted. There are people doing their best to resist, to hold onto what is normal and right, to make sure that those who can be protected are as best they can. There are people moving where and how they are doing work. There are people continuing to download information and repost them in other places as websites go down. We are part of a much larger network of those who value diversity and equity and justice and know that our interdependence means we can leave no person out of the circle of our care. So let us remember that amidst adversity, we find courage, that the seeds of resistance are planted and watered and growing just beneath the surface of those hard stories. And so, in this time, as we celebrate Imbolc, as the earth turns, as we move toward the equinox and the springtime, let us remember that we too are growing in spirit, in love, in justice. And let us hold room for not just sorrows too tender to speak aloud, but also for noting the joy and refusing to let moments of peace and goodwill and happiness be taken from us. May we find in this space, as in the wider world, peace and comfort and moments of community to enfold us and remind us of all that we are, the beloved community. Amen, and blessed be.
Our sacred message this morning is entitled A Religious Call for Compassion. From the Torah come these words, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, having yourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt." Exodus chapter 23, verse 9. And again, when a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong them. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love them as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 and 34. In the Christian texts, it is written that Jesus said, "Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink?' When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 37 through 40. Hinduism teaches of the idea of Atman, or the divine, the divine soul that resides in every individual, and encourages compassion and hospitality towards all people, including immigrants, foreigners, and those whose skin or hair color is different from our own. The Quran states, and they give food in spite of love for it to the needy, the orphan, and the captive, saying, we feed you only for the countenance of Allah. We wish not from you reward or gratitude. That's chapter 76, verses 8 and 9. The Buddhist concept of metta, or loving kindness, emphasizes treating all beings with respect and compassion. Most Buddhist practitioners believe in helping those in need, regardless of their race, nationality, or background. And Unitarian Universalists, guided by love at our center and uplifted by our values of justice, interdependence, and generosity, say, just as love knows no borders, our dedication to justice reaches across boundaries and walls. We show up on the side of love with all families, regardless of citizenship status, and strive to create welcoming communities and congregations. Our core reading this morning is by Jessica York. Jessica York writes, "This is not a prayer that you may find hope, for hope is a luxury that some cannot find and others cannot afford. This is not a prayer that you find more love in the world, though I hope you continue to feel love and send love to those near and far. I pray instead that you may find tools, a hammer lying half hidden in the grass, a roll of duct tape curled up and forgotten on a high shelf in the back of the closet, a wrench poking out of the back pocket of a stranger. Take these tools and gird thyself, a hammer for justice, duct tape to hold together your broken heart, a wrench to grip and provide advantage in applying torque to turn objects or turn the world. Take these tools and others you may find in places expected and unexpected. Take these tools and gird thyself, for weeping may last through the night, but the work begins in the morning."
There is an Eastern European folk tale which goes a little something like this. One day, a young boy living in a small shtetl, a village, came home with a flower. His mother, who had not seen such beauty in some time, decided to put it in a small jar near the window. But she found she could not see it well. So she decided to polish the window. Once the window was polished, she noticed the table was dusty and decided to clean it. Decided to wash the tablecloth while she was at it. And then, as she and her children looked around, they realized how lovely the table looked, but how many other things were stacked up, dusty, surrounding that table. They began to clean, to move chairs and sweep the floors, to brush off the long unattended bookshelves and rearrange the books for easier reading so that things would look nice, to make space for what was good. The whole house became brighter and cleaner. Over the next couple weeks, they found that their own attitudes had brightened, that they spoke to one another more kindly. And so it was. The family was refreshed and renewed because of one simple flower. I tell this story because, in a way, it is a larger metaphor for our world. What we choose to focus on matters. When I first said that I would be talking about the racial justice history of Wyoming, the justice history of Wyoming, it was months ago. I had no idea how present our politics would make this subject. But what I want to talk about what I hope you'll join me in exploring is not so much Wyoming's dark corners in the sense of the yucky bits of our state or the harsh and awful facts of what we should feel bad about or ashamed of in our history, but more like in this folk tale, the things we could not see before the window was cleaned, the things that have happened not because we were a bad family, but because people have a tendency to let what is remain unless our attention is called to it. That house long ago in the shtetl wasn't dirty because they were a bad or an evil family. It was dirty because a little dust settles now and again. And unless we are called to see it, it can build up without our even noticing. And so here we are. Here we are with our Wyoming past. Wyoming, as many of you know, was more or less started, especially here in Cheyenne, as a place for settlement because the railroad was coming through. Yes? The railroad, the gold rush, the people moving to find good places to be, somewhere a little less crowded, a little more open to dreaming. Most of those people were not bad or evil, but with the times, they were called to disregard, to not notice that this land already had people on it. Those people, the Native Americans of this region, were made to move, to make way for white progress. And so it was that the Arapaho and the Shoshone were pushed northward, even from Colorado. The places that the Arapaho called home were south of Denver. They now live in some of the more northern reaches of Wyoming on the Wind River Reservation. And yet, in that story also, there is a story that comes up not only of victimization of the Native American peoples, but of sharing. The Arapaho and Shoshone each have part of a reservation, because when the Arapaho were moved northward, the Shoshone said, yes, you can spend the winter. And then said, yes, you can continue to be here instead of being pushed further north into Montana or out to the Dakotas. In that story, there is a longer story that continues even today of learning to live in the tension of being two different peoples with different languages, living in the same area with some very similar needs and some which are different in history, in religious feeling, in language, in education. We also find stories of Chinese railroad workers brought in who formed beautiful communities, thriving ones, and then were made to leave, of a black town of miners which once thrived and was destroyed by white violence. But within those again, we find stories of courage, stories of movement, stories of people who made it work. And later, we find here on the plains James Reeb, who grew up in Wyoming, became eventually a Unitarian minister. From just north of us in Casper, he moved east and then went south to Selma, based on the values he learned here, not of racial hatred, but of justice and of care. And so we look to the more complicated stories, because some of what he learned was part of our history as well. A history of reaching out to your neighbors. A history of knowing that what happened at Heart Mountain with the Japanese internment camps was not right, was forced upon us by the federal government, but that we need to do what we can to make things better when we see ourselves going wrong, when we see what is coming down from on high does not fit our own values. I know there are many within our congregation, even today, who are making sure that they are ready for resistance, who are making sure that their compassion is bigger than the hate that we see around us. And I saw a small story, just a passing mini blog on Facebook a couple days ago saying, today, from one of the workers in a nonprofit organization, today I had a test argument with my supervisor. This person wrote, I told my supervisor that I was not going to remove our diversity statement, our inclusion statement, from our website without resistance. And their supervisor asked more about it, asked, but what if it affects our funding? What if we have to take it down? The response was, maybe we will eventually, but not without resistance, not unprompted. And maybe, they continued, as they went back and forth in the conversation, maybe we each have certain lines. If it affects our funding, are we going to stop paying those of our employees who are trans or non-binary? No, obviously not, said the supervisor. Well, it sounds like that's one of your lines. And they continued back and forth, a test conversation, a test argument to find out where are the places where we are ready to stand firm. This is what I hope we are learning today and each day as we look for those stories, the stories of hardship, the stories of courage, as we look to little Audrey Faye Hendricks to say, when can I get involved and how deeply? Am I ready? Am I ready to march or to picket, to create a sign or to go to jail? Am I ready in these test conversations? Am I ready to stand in front of our words and our mission to say, this remains? Am I ready to defend coworkers, colleagues? Am I ready to say no thank you when I am asked for my resignation? What are your lines? No one can tell you but you. But this is powerful justice work. It is spiritual work, the wondering together. And this is what we will be doing in our sanctuary conversation after the worship service. This work of wondering together, this work of exploring. And I hope it's work that you will continue to do in casual conversations, in our potlucks and coffee hours, with friends, with the chalice circles which we are forming, and the Wellspring group, which has been exploring such questions for months now. So here we are in the wonder and mystery of life. And that wondering includes our work for these coming weeks and months. Where do we find our courage, our compassion, our voices? May we find them here again and again, refreshed by this community, which holds us each in love and asks us to become our best selves. May it be so. And knowing that we have potluck coming right up and people like to have warm food, I am going to ask at this time, rather than moving into our sung response, will you rise in body or in spirit? And as you are willing, come on up and let's get a photo taken. Oh, can you do that from the microphone so we can all hear?
Okay, sorry about that. So you remember, hi guys. So you remember the short people in front, the tall people are, everything like that, right? I have some music to help calmly motivate us to get there. So I don't know if you can hear that. So feel free to dance on your way up and everything like that. That pulpit in the palace as well. We can move behind there as well for a few, but we want to make sure that we have.
For anyone that might need.
All right, so no, this would be, I'm sorry, but you're.
He's tall, just fine.
People in this conversation.
Make sure you can see Heather right now. Then you see Heather, if you cannot see her, move so you can see her.
Yeah.
Moving in front of me.
Okay.
Alright, let's organize ourselves. You guys are. Got it. Oh, great. Oh, did you want? Oh, my Lance, I love you. I am. You guys wanna stand here? You wanna go by Sarah? Okay. I am actually being drowned out by telling people that it never happened.
In June and July with no air conditioner. I need you guys to smile. I need you to go like this with your shoulders. I need you to, we're not stiff and, you know.
You got a timer on that? How are you guys gonna get in the picture? Right?
Listen, Van Gogh only painted one picture of himself, so I'm only gonna do.
Steve, what
Okay.
are you doing?
Okay. No, Chris does not want to. No, I am good. Okay, are you guys good? Okay, so we're gonna take a couple pictures, we're gonna take good pictures, and then we're gonna take fun pictures. Okay, because we're UUs and this is what we do. Okay, so everybody look over here. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna be wild and crazy because that's, you know, just who I am. So I need everybody to give me your funniest face, funny ears, everything for everybody, and I need crazy. Crazy ears. Okay, there you go. There you go. Simple. And that's probably gonna be the one that they get. Thank you guys.
Yes. Thank you. I'll sit back there and tell you. I appreciate it.
And so, and Andy, let us head to potluck as we extinguish our.
Yeah, I gotta go help. We may have a good.
But not, the light is going.
For the fire of the Please we carry within our hearts until we are together.
So it's a piece of
All right.
Great service. Great service. I was thinking maybe a pair. Because it would have been fun for you to be able
Like
to.
along the line, yeah,
You could've
actually
played,
from like
you know.
the clock forward. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Test, test, test. All right, now go ahead and go into the library.
So you didn't hear any of it?
They can hear like all of this. Anytime we talk, but they can't hear anything of the music for some reason.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is, or maybe that mic's.
I see.
Whatever. Big either. Library. All right, go ahead. What it may come down to is us just having to get. But they can hear it beautifully in here, but it's not not online. All right, Josh, can you hear me? Like the beginning, what, 2 seconds? What was that? Okay, but you were hearing it? Okay. What part of the song? Like the beginning or? Okay, yeah. What we'll do, are you planning to play next week?
No, it's my birthday. But I'll be here the week after.
What we'll do is let us play around with the mic. And then probably just set it up with a different mic.
Yeah.
Thank you. They're not coming in next week, but what we'll do is they do come in the week after. By that time, we should have the pairing and whatnot figured out. It picks it up, but I don't know why, but.
I didn't think they could do it. I didn't want to come for. So, and actually your birthday is coming up. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Saturday. Happy birthday, bro. Thanks.
Yeah, mine's Sunday next week. So
Fun.
that's exciting.
I don't. Maybe that mic is not picking up the tone. I don't know why, but.
Does it work better with my other violin?
That's what.
I will come in with my other violin and then next time I do have to set my G string. So this is kind of in the middle of the performance. Exciting. Yeah.
We'll get it.
Should I shut down the stream?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.